Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned in to the Vault. Trust Christian own nothing, control everything. Always want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. This is the Vault, episode 342. The best lessons are in trustee training. Definitely wanted to do this episode today for so many people that have come to the workshops, people that haven't come to the workshops. We have private workshops for our trustees that are in our trustee training program. So this is the Vault episode 342. The best lessons are in the trustee training. Definitely wanted to do this episode today, partially for trustees, but at the same time, definitely want to do episode for so many people that may have not gotten in through the program yet. So, what would be the best lessons? The best lessons were this past weekend having the mentors, having the speakers that we had deliver what would be considered powerful messages of wisdom. The best lessons are going to come in the trustee training because you do have the sage wisdom. You do have access to the resources. You do have access to the senior trustees. The best lessons come when you get around the senior trustees. That's what happens. That's what happens for the best lessons. The best lessons are always going to come in a trustee training because that's where or they'll leisurely they'll come from there in the beginning if it's for beginners, and even still for seniors this is still a great environment because you're intermingling with seniors. It's about the environment. The best lessons are going to come from being around the seniors. So when we had the opportunities to be around the seniors, we're going to get the best lessons. Some of the best lessons might be simple lessons. They might be simple statements. We've already gotten feedback about what one of the mentors said during the actual event, and it was a simple lesson. But what happens when you implement the simple lesson and you live the simple life? That's what we're talking about. Living the simple life, not complicated. The best lessons are always going to come in trustee training because it's a continuing education program. It's growing, it's evolving. What are some of the lessons that people take away from these workshops? That the power is in the community. Oh no, there's no strength in numbers. Oh well, we need to. People don't understand what competition is. But the best lessons are in trustee training because we talk about the competition. People ask about the competition. So in our particular sector, when we talk about doing the trustee trainings, when we do them, they're for the trustees. That's who's in the room predominantly, is trustees. When we talk about whether you're dealing with the American Bankers Association or the Lawyers Association, these associations, they're just majority of one particular profession or niche. We're talking about fiduciaries. People that are so-called investors. You think you're not a fiduciary if you're an investor? You're a fiduciary. So even if you lose money, you're still a fiduciary. If you make money, you're a fiduciary. Did you know you can get fiduciary insurance when you make mistakes? The company can have insurance on you when you make mistakes. The best lessons are in trustee training. They always have and always will be. Because for so many families, the first generational wealth preservation tool is being implemented in their family situation. When you see families that are saying we're first gen, we're looking to go private, that we're going to do some more episodes for you all because that's what this is about. This is about being able to grow something and pass it along for the next generation. And think about how much you end up acquiring assets under management in one lifetime. So, to add to that, passing it along, it just leaves the next generation in a better position than the previous one. That's what we're talking about. The best lessons are in the trustee training. Trustees said they had a great time this past weekend. We already know how that goes. Why? Because it's made for the trustees, and so many people even have come to one before. They said this one was better. So many good reviews about it was better than the last one as far as the transitions, just going from one and speaker to the next, going from one, senior to the next. There still was a great smooth transition, which was great. So the best lessons are always going to share with people how to implement strategy, how to implement facilitating a quality environment for growth that's conducive for growth. Those things are important. Appreciate Mississippi for tuning in live, listening to replay. Appreciate Mississippi. We got Delaware for tuning in live, listening to replay. Appreciate Delaware for tuning in live, listening to replay. The best lessons are in the trustee training. You come to the workshops, so many people say, "Oh, I know I need to go." At this point, you're just missing the Super Bowl. It's not a coincidence that the mentors are going. If the mentors are going, wouldn't you go? But oh no, no, the mentors are going. So what happened? Was it a not able to afford it or otherwise? Who knows? Was it time? Who knows? The mentors cart out the time. They cart it in their schedule because they want to make it a point to be involved, to have their hands dirty in the game because they're still playing. We're still playing. We're active managers. You're an active manager if you're building something. It doesn't matter how many things you're building, but if you're building something, you're an active manager. Whether it's an asset of yourself, of a business, whatever the equity, the whatever it is. The best lessons are in trustee training. We had some trustees, ask some quality questions on trustee training this past week. And as you all can see, we're still putting in overtime to see the trustees show up on trustee training on Sundays. They didn't show up with a doofus mentality of, oh, well, we wonder if we're going to have the Sunday call. And, the ones that made it a point to be present were present. You have to make it a point for whatever you're doing. And so when we have the trustees show up that, we're there, they show, okay, we're going to be available for what we know is quintessential time too. Something that's carved out with or without us. That's the mentality. Oh, I got to have a flight at this time. No worries. Look, the ones that need to get it are going to get it. The trustee training is a great program for trustees that are looking to improve their skill set, especially when you talk about management, but not just management. Even when we talk about uh, the network, when we talk about the peers, when you think about that, people in trust deal with people in trust. We did an episode about that. Appreciate the Bronx, New York, tuning in live, listening to replay. We got Oakland, California, Bronx, New York, Oakland, California, for tuning in live, listening to replay. Appreciate you all for tuning in live, listening to replay. Uh, we're working on the next day. We'd like to do it next February of next year. That'll give a great time for people to kind of get themselves together going into this final quarter. We'll see. And it's going to be a great format next year. It'll be more regional. You just need to do more regional instead of hitting them with the, 2 times a year, but maybe not even four. Maybe just kind of work it to 2 to 3. Because, sometimes when people get in our environment, they're not used to the caliber of A-class players that we're playing with. And which is interesting because everybody wants to bring title to the table. Everybody wants to say they're bringing assets to the table. Oh, I have all these assets. Oh, I have all these assets. Or so if that's the case, there's an educational gap because once again, when we talk to trustees, it's like, well, what environment are we in? We're in the high net worth investor environment. We're in that period. And you think you're going to walk in this room without a suit on? You're fooling yourself. It's not a requirement, but what happens when the speakers are and then the host is? You see how you feel now. It's not to say people come in with baseball caps and jeans and t-shirt. Trustee training. The best lessons are in trustee training. Appreciate Carrollton, Ohio for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Carrollton, Ohio for tuning in live, listening to replay. So we're sitting in a room and, it's a great room where you get to see the mentors in their peak condition. You can't say that the mentors aren't giving. They flew across the country. They're standing in a room with you. They're sharing with you what it's like to have property internationally, if that's your aspiration. How can you replace that? You can say, well, I don't have this where I'm at. That might be true. So then are you going to get on a plane, which we had people say, this is the first time I got on an airplane. Because of what? You got on, this is the first time they got on an airplane. There's no need to throw up balloons and confetti, but, it's the first time someone got on an airplane, which is great. And look what you're going to. You're going to a private trustee workshop. Appreciate New Zealand for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate New Zealand for tuning in live, listening to replay. What happens when people fly all the way around the world from New Zealand to go to the workshops? What are you going to say when you live right there in America, where you could have met the mentors? Oh, do we need to overflow into the room? Not necessarily. The best lessons are always going to come from the trainings. Why? Because you get to ask your questions privately. You don't have to worry about the internet being in the way, which is the public. The internet's the public. That's why you have to do the private. Oh, why are you going private, but you're not investing in the private network, let alone your private education? They're trying to get around investing in being with people that are in trust. Why? Because they're not in trust properly, right? They're just doing it over the internet, right? We get people contact us all the time. Oh, I got this document. I got this. I got that. I got this from this person. And it's like, well, ladies and gentlemen, do you not understand what you're saying? You're saying you're going into the private, so you have to stick to your roots. You have to be deep rooted. As the mentors would say, you got to be deep rooted. It's a small community. You say, oh, I got the 1% information. We talk to our trustees about that all the time. I got the 1%. You got the 1% stuff. You got the 1% information. And when somebody asks you how your day going, you tell them you're having an okay day. You have your freedom ticket. You have the key. As they say, you have the key. But then some people think they get one key that unlocks all the doors. And it doesn't work that way. One key doesn't unlock all the doors. That's why you have a team. That's why you invest in your network, because it's not about just the information, it's about the relationships. People say, oh, but when we go to the workshop, we're not allowed to talk to people. So how does that work? We're only allowed to talk to the speakers because they didn't pay to be there. So they're authentic. So the best lessons are going to come from people that are being authentic, that they don't need to be there. They're there out of respect. They're there out of what people want to call, it ain't love. What would they say? Money talks and everything else what? Walks. That's what the mentors are showing you. We're here to serve because you all need help. Right. It's a room full of people that are in a position of asset holding, position of looking to be in superior positions, to maintain those positions and grow those positions from the proper position. And so the best lessons are going to come from when you're in a room specifically with those people that have that specific need, as opposed to being around everybody just on the internet or wherever the local neighborhood is, and being around people that are liabilities, that they're not liabilities, they're liabilities, period, in so many different ways. And so you just see that liabilities in the business particular sense when we're talking about that somebody were to sue them, things can happen to the company, that you may be involved with them and things of that nature. And so we really at the Vault do our best to serve with a barrage of backgrounds. When you talk about somebody that even worked for the SEC in our network, that's coming and you getting to know people in these environments. So when people talk about, oh, I need to raise the security, we've already let people know. Everybody's saying they're raising the security for the $100 million off their birth certificate or whatever it is. The people that contact the Vault talk in that language. Oh, I got a birth certificate. I got my birth certificate authenticated. So you got your birth certificate authenticated by a debt company. So what? And then you got the other ones that are saying about the will and the trust and the this and the that. And it's not exciting to get into those phone conversations, but we do have those phone conversations. We address those phone conversations because in the public, people, they contact and they ask, and it's like, well, let's just get to the crux of the matter here. What are you going to provide, with this, whatever this contract is, or not, and so when we talk about trustee training, We're talking about just that. Now, we're not talking about just the security and securities information that you got to talk to the securities licensed people about. That's what we're talking about. If you got to do that, then you got to talk to those people. Well, we had those people in the room. So when you say, oh, well, I don't know where I'm going to find all these people that they're in the private, I don't know where I'm going to find these people at. Well, you got to invest in your private education. You might have to fly all the way around the world from New Zealand. You might have to do that. That's just the bottom line. You might have to fly all the way around the world from New Zealand to where the location is. That's how it works. You think it's going to be free? You think it's going to be cheap to buy a network? You think it's cheap? Oh man, it costs. It does. But these are the sacrifices that people are either willing to make or not willing to make. That's the difference. The mentors say and tell you, oh, well, when I wanted to do this, I just had to make a decision and just do it. Oh, how is it so complicated? The best lessons are in trustee training like this past weekend when we're sitting in a room and people are asking questions. You got to let the leaders lead. Questions come from the leaders. The leaders got to know how to help their quote unquote following, the people that they're with. Here's the best lesson for you all. This is a lesson from the trustee training. This is Trust Christian in the Vault. So, this is a long story short. You come to the training and you got somebody that you don't really know if they're interested in the information by their body language. Because you're not a master reader of body language. That's fine. But you bring somebody to the workshop and you think that they don't hear anything. But they're sitting in the environment and they're picking up information. Why? Just like a child would. It's unconscious. They hear the message. And then when you ask them afterwards, did they get anything? They did. But while they were sitting there, you didn't read their body language the whole time. And so, because you couldn't read their body language, this is an example, ladies and gentlemen, of a lesson. Because you couldn't read their body language, you didn't introduce them to the speakers. You know the speakers, but you didn't introduce them to the speakers. You didn't introduce them to the people that can help them. The reason why they're in the room in what seat? The seat, not the stage. That's what happened. Because somebody didn't introduce them to the speakers, whether they didn't know whether they wanted to be introduced or not, it's the simple fact. You give them an opportunity to show their true colors. It's like an interview. People in trust deal with people in trust. We're all in that environment. And what? Trust. Introduce. Let's talk. Maybe their tune would have changed once someone started speaking their language. See, some people only speak money. Some people only speak assets. Everybody doesn't speak poverty. Everybody doesn't speak poorly of themselves. Oh, I have a bad memory. Oh, I can't ever remember this. Not everybody speaks that way. So now because someone didn't introduce their guests to the speakers, guess what? They actually heard something afterwards when the person asked the person after the event. Oh, well, I heard you. This is what we talked about. This could be a great opportunity possibly. You're right about that. Right. And those conversations are to be had in the room and on the spot so we can really make moves, not just talk about it. Because now it's just a conversation on the ride home or the flight home. So then when you come back and you say, yeah, somebody, they were there and, it wasn't a full introduction, but guess what? They missed out on an opportunity unknowingly. But they actually were paying attention. They just looked the way they looked. Whether they look grumpy, whether they look tired, whether they look hungover, whether they look, I don't know what the heck's going on in here. It would have been worth it. Why? Because you would have got a chance to interview somebody and find out how they're going to act when they get in front of people that are in positions of where they want to be in life. How do they treat them? How do they talk to them? Does their back stiffen up? You got to get your people around the mentors. That's what he was doing. He was actually doing that. He was getting someone around the mentors. Well, okay, you got to do that then. You got to do that. You got to fully allow that individual to get a chance to meet. Why? Because it's just a simple handshake. It's just you can see someone when you meet them in a handshake and get a feel for someone right then and there, talking to someone right then and there. You can do that. But that's what happens. Did you get him to the mentors? Did you get him to the embers in the fire? Did you get him to the seniors? Did you get him to the people that are in international positions? Not just national positions. Are you in international positions? Oh, we're in international positions, but are you in it properly? What happened to you investing in the community so you can pull something out of it? That's what happened. People forgot that they were investing money and they're focused on spending money. And that's the problem. They think even when they get money, they got to spend it. But what happened to the investment? Appreciate Waco, Texas. Tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Waco, Texas for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to type into the chat where you listen live, listen to replay. Feel free to reach out Christian at trustchristian.com. Definitely look forward to you if you're working with a consultation or the next workshop right now we're thinking about next year. So great times though. Best lessons are in trustee training when you get a chance to see people face to face and you can see, okay, now we see what's going on. We seeing what you're looking like on your daily when you're doing business with the who, the bank, when you're doing business with other business people. This is how you dress. We had a surprise visit come through and the trustee training call yesterday. It was a senior, and still, even once again, just a follow up to, what we're talking about, the lessons in the trustee training, how they 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 train someone to say, okay, I'm either going or I'm not. That's the difference. The best lessons are in the trustee training because it keeps on evolving. We're looking to do it in so many different venues. It's only going to get better. Appreciate the trustees that got a chance to come through. Thank yourself because you wanted to separate yourself from the pack. We had someone sit at the table afterwards at dinner, sitting around, and someone said, "What do you do as an entrepreneur, quote unquote investor, and is it lonely?" And we had some people say, "Hey, well, no one really said anything, but it's just interesting to see somebody ask, are people lonely as entrepreneurs?" And it's like, well, how are you lonely as a trustee? I'm lonely trustee. How are you a lonely trustee? And you're not surrounding yourself around a team. You're not surrounding yourself around people you can ask to be successors. You think people don't ask people to be successors? Like, that's just standard equipment. Somebody may take that the wrong way, like, oh, I don't want to be your successor. Being even a successor is still a responsibility. Because as soon as that other person goes, you're up to bat. It's definitely a major responsibility uh, in that respect. Somebody asked this question: are you lonely as an entrepreneur investor? Meaning just the work that you have to put in separating yourself. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. When you talking about going through trustee training, you're in the top 20% of people just thinking about being a fiduciary or thinking about being a trustee. Not everybody wants to be a trustee, so we're very aware of the lead and the conversation that we're having at the vault when we talk about being the best lessons in the trustee training. We know that. They're going to come from the evolution of trustees evolving and having conversations because they need to, not because they just want to. They're actually having these conversations. They need to improve their position and things of that nature. The best lessons are in trustee training for sure. The training is going to evolve, and just be prepared for that. You know, you gotta definitely be prepared for things to evolve and grow. And trustee training has definitely evolved. Great location. PowerPoint was definitely great. And just conversation overall. We could go to even more of a eating and food style. There's so much to do in the environment to grow. But nevertheless, it's not about just what's there now. It's about what's going to grow too, and that's the most important thing is just growing, people growing, and that's the most important part. So definitely excited about the event, trustee training this past weekend, the workshop. Trustee training was great. Uh, did it one day, had four different speakers. Uh, Definitely excited about it. It was just really made it a point to connect with the trustees that have traveled and connect with the seniors that are making themselves available to the listeners of the vault or people that are trustees and the trustee training in the vault. Just really thankful for that, excited for that, to have the seniors take their time out of their schedule. So many people say, oh, well, why would you speak that way? Well, first of all, the mentors or the seniors don't need to be there. They don't have to be there. The seniors are there because they understand the importance of serving. The greatest leader is the greatest server. The greatest leader is the greatest server. But oh no, I don't want to hear that because I'm not trying to wipe nobody's feet down, Trust Christian. Trust Christian and vote. I'm not trying to give nobody no water while they speak at Trust Christian and vote. I wouldn't think about that. You think about it. You talking, but your throat might not get parched. It's like, why wouldn't you? You wouldn't know that. Why? Because you don't speak. When you speak, people's throat can get parched. So, the greatest server is the greatest leader. Those lessons come from being in an environment so you can see that the greatest server is the greatest leader. Is that how it works? That's how it works. The best lessons are in trustee training. The greatest server is the greatest leader. That it's not going to feel good because then why do I have to serve? How does serving look? Serving is thinking about someone like you think of yourself. Is the room going to be warm? Is the room going to be hot? Are the chairs going to be comfortable? Are the chair, is it going to be a safe environment for me to leave things and walk out the room to use the bathroom? Someone looking out for your security. Someone's able to facilitate this through the internet privately. The best lessons are in the trustee training. Why? Because you got to be in the environment to get the lessons. You hear that? You get the lessons when you're in the environment. Oh no, I think I can get around those lessons. What about what you don't know? The mentors know things, the seniors know things that you don't know. So now you're saying that are you lacking in the educational department? And this is where we get down to the nitty gritty. Are you? Because if you are not, and it's time to go do the right thing, it's time to invest in a private education. That's how we're doing it, ladies and gentlemen. Trustee training. Look forward to hearing from you, working with you. Trustee training. Uh, it's been a blast working with the trustees this go around. When you see the trustees taking heed and moving forward, because that's what it's all about. There are trustees that have taken the information, taken the training, uh, and really have ran with it. And it's no need to be blowing smoke or compliments, but it is something to say that we get quite a few people that get it and go. We're not mad if someone does that over at the vault. It's fine, but just knowing that we're doing our part. We're doing our part at the vault. When we talk about doing the workshops, the trustee training, we're doing our part. We're opening up the door that some people think they end up getting the key. So you got the key, which is the passion to get through the door. But now that you got through the door, you think you don't need to acknowledge the person that was at the first door that opened up? Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we've already seen how savage the private side is. We share with our trustees how savage the private side is. This side is savage. You'll see people your own quote unquote nationality or culture try to literally tear you down, try to rip you apart when we all can eat. But for some odd reason, you see people trying to tear you down, rip you apart, slander. Now, we've addressed on the Vols channel, if anybody wants to know, we've addressed the consultations we get about other people's products. Because sometimes other people say, well, have you experienced that person's products? Of course we have. So we even have first-hand experience at the Vault with those people products. We might even have first-hand experience with that person that you're mentioning. All the big shots that you hear on the internet, the so-called big shots. Oh, they're a big shot because he's got all these views and all this other stuff, or she's got all these views. Sure, they're a big shot because they got views. Okay, but we've talked to these people. We've done business with these people, and we've talked to these people, and it's just, ladies and gentlemen, we get the questions because other people sometimes may not be doing their part, and that's that. We're still getting questions from other people's organizations. Why? Some people say, "Oh, what about the program at the Vault? Is it 100%?" How's it going to be 100% when someone may quit? They got other things. A quitter's going to quit, correct? Correct. So we'll never sit here and make this fake number up and say, "Oh yeah, everybody that does it is successful." Why? That's a lie. We actually don't want to share with you the failures, but sometimes people become failures habitually. You got to fix that. And so the lessons that come in trustee training are to help people to fix those problems actually. Whether it's time management, whether it's project management, whether it's communication skills, whether it is leadership skills. Someone actually asked about accounting skills the other day. It's like, well, if you get around the right people, you'll find those people that can do that, those things for you. So we talk about business as a team sport, so the best lessons are going to come to a trustee and a trainer are definitely about building a team, making sure you're insulated with good people on both sides. And so obviously you have to invest and get around, whether that's going to other countries, whether that is going to other states. I mean, there is no limit to how much you should be willing to invest in your private education or your education in general. And so that's what we really, really push at the Vault, is just focusing on the education, because we don't want to say you just get stuck reading books your whole life or stuck going to seminars. There is action that should be taken, action that will be taken in those particular situations. And so the best lessons are going to come from you actually putting the work into as well. But a lot of times people say, well, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. If you're trained into saying that, you got to train yourself to invest in yourself, period. That's it. So you can get to more of a competent state, so you can feel competent in what is it that you're doing, competent in finance and all this stuff. Everybody say, oh, I want to make the money, I want to make the money. If you made over $50,000 a year, you're above average, man. Lady, you're above average if you made more than 50. When you go from 50 to $100,000 a year, you're in a different air. Like it's like if we could talk about airplanes, like a person that's making $60,000 a year, $80,000, just if we use even a middle between 50 and just like if they're making $75,000 a year, that's somebody that can definitely fly and go on one or two vacations a year. Can go on at least one vacation for a week. They can spend, just because people live at their level of income. So even if they were to have the car, have the house, they could go on vacation. But 80, 75, 80, employees. If you're talking entrepreneurs, it's going to be different, but that's how it is. So when we talk about, people generating that type of capital, those are lifestyle numbers. When we talk about like getting past $100,000, do you know how much that means? You're spending over $50,000 a year to live somewhere. Over 50. Some people may spend that. But just like in the States, when we talk about like numbers, hard numbers, like a lot of people are not living. Like there's 300 million people in the United States, and half the population is not living at $50,000 or more. Half of the population. Half. It's more than half. It's not living at $50,000. The population. Okay? If we want to talk about going higher, for adding in Caucasians and saying, oh, they're making this much more, sure, but either way, you all know what the poverty line is. You know what average is. So when we talk about 100K, 200K plus a year, you start getting past quarter, You're talking about now half a mil plus. You're doing great things. And being around the right people obviously is going to help you. You know, when you get into millions, you're over here managing millions of dollars. The conversations are different. So when you talk about going from a, 50 to 100, you're talking about maybe 10,000 to 20,000 feet on the air, 25,000 feet in the air. Then you get to anywhere between 25 and 30,000 feet in the air. That's where it is where most commercial airlines fly, about 25,000 plus 30,000, 35,000 feet. Commercial Airbuses, things that have a coach but they have a first class. And then when you talk about like traditionally like quarter of a mil plus, but we're talking about like a quarter of a mil to a million, you're talking 35,000 to 45,000 feet. So you may just be able to first get on the opportunity to get on a private jet. You have the opportunity to have some excess cash flow, take one private jet trip, maybe a year. Private jet's gonna run you maybe $10,000 to $20,000. So you got $10,000 to $20,000 because you're making from a quarter of a mil to $1 million a year. So you got $20,000 to go on a private jet trip real quick. So you go from a million to whether you want to go at 2.5, 5, 10, 20, or 30. Anything less than 30. So anything from a mil to 30 million, you're talking rare air. What it doesn't have to all be liquid. It could be assets under management, portfolio management. You're just portfolio management at that point. Most people in their life will never be able to say that they've managed more than $1 million. So a million to 30 million in 1 year still under your control. You haven't squandered it. It's better than the average person. It's like asking, well, why do people hit the lottery and go poor? It's because they don't know how to manage assets. So we're gonna go ahead and say that the asset managers in this particular case has been able to obtain managing a million to 30 million, anywhere from a 30 million you're pretty much not using your own money anymore. If you had to go from zero to a million and somehow you were able to get around not having to build up, but once you get to a million and you can build up from 1 to 30, you're showing great diligence over capital, specifically $1 million. So you'll see some funds come in and want to give you capital. A lot of institutions will be able to give you capital. Once you're above 30, for sure they can give you capital. Once you have over $30 million assets under management, you can have that capital right there for you available on an institutional level. So you can borrow what you already have, traditionally more probably actually that they wouldn't give you necessarily $100 million right out the rip, but a lot of times you can look into like another 30 to $50 million of extended capital. When you look at most institutions, you can just do your homework. um, but so that's what you're looking at when you look at some of these institutions. They really want to see what you have currently under assets under management. So when you talk about that, whether it's with trustees or otherwise, yes, that's really important. Is being able to manage assets, and then be able to show track record and things of that nature. So that's really important. Now, when you talk about from a mil to 30 mil, you're talking about where you're pretty much in a private jet. People talk about, oh, I'm going private. Like, what's private? That's private. These type of capital, assets under management, that's private. How many people can live off $1 million a year? Most people can live off $1 million a year. Whether they make it and spend it each year or they make it and they save it, they're able to generate $1 million a year, period. So once again, if someone's able to generate that million to anywhere to $30 million, they're in a range of air where they're above 45,000 feet for sure, and they're in a private jet. So it's 45,000 to 55,000 feet. Could be a little bit higher, but just depends on the type of jet that you're talking about. So when you talk about like, oh, how should I? We talked about that on the trustee training call because the best lessons are in the trustee training. When we talk about what gets measured gets accomplished, when you say, okay, right now I need to be able to get around. Someone just got on their first Airbus, so that means they're at the 25,000 to 35,000 feet. That's where they are. They got on there. That's where they are in life. They got to look at themselves as I am at that range. That means I'm doing from 50 to what? A quarter of a mil or at least 100. Quarter of a mil, at least 100. Or excuse us, 50. You can do 50, above 50. 50 will get you in the air though. 50,000 to get you in the air, like I say, to get it one vacation. 50. That may be 25K, but from 25 to 35,000 feet, you're traveling internationally on some Boeing or something to go internationally. You're going to Dubai, you're going to Thailand. You're riding on the tickets in first class are almost private jet status almost at that point. You're buying these especially, yeah. So when you talk about the lessons, you're at that 25,000 feet at the 50 level. So when we talk about the 100K to $250,000, you're right there under 35,000. That's still great headway. Great headway. So when you're going from any higher, what is that? From 35,000 feet in the air to 45,000 feet, maybe a little higher, you're talking about quarter of a million to a million. And then from a mill, you're talking about 45,000 to 55,000 plus not square, but feet in the air. And this is where people are flying because they're measuring where they're looking to be, what they're looking to do. If you're just looking to stand at 25,000 feet air or 30,000 feet, then you already know what you got to do. Some trustees say, "Hey, we're looking to get on these different type of air flights." Right. So that's why they're working. That's why they know, okay, what's the number that I need to even be in this type of thinking? These are the numbers we're talking. When you have $1 million a year, you could spend $80,000 on a private jet membership, and that should get you around the world. I mean, you almost will have a flight around the world every single month if you need it for $80,000. You can. That's cheap. That's really cheap. But nevertheless, yeah, that's really cheap. That's just being honest. So you have to just say, okay, well, $80,000. That's really cheap. What if that was just a quarter? So what if a year you spent $250,000 a year on private flight? That's how much it costs for a private trustee to operate privately, period, which means they're private. They're in that space of 35,000 to 45,000 to 55,000 feet. That means they're quarter of a million a mil, and they're saying we're traveling around. We're not doing public stuff. We're not doing the public vacations at the quarter at the 25,000 feet level at the to 25 to 35. We're not doing those things. We're doing the things higher, and that's how it happens. Appreciate Detroit for tuning in live, listen to replay. I always appreciate Detroit for tuning in live, listen to replay. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Nevertheless, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. As y'all can see, the best lessons are always going to be. People think, oh, well, I'm getting it in the front in the public, through the web, through the YouTube or the website or whatever. And hey, the best lessons are in the trustee training. Appreciate you for tuning in live. Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all. Peace.